It is Saturday, December the 13th, and the honeymoon period for Donald Trump is over. Multiple polls now show that his approval rating is deep underwater as the public grows weary of how his administration is handling or mishandling many of his top campaign promises. A new poll from AP and NORC released this week shows that Trump's approval rating stands at just 36%, unchanged from last month, which represents a record low for his second term. It's the third poll in as many weeks to show deep dissatisfaction with his job performance, following similar results from surveys conducted by Gallup and Reuters Ipsos. They offer strong proof that many Americans have soured on how the Trump administration is carrying out many of its top priorities, including its vicious and sometimes violent crackdown on legal and illegal immigration, which is terrorizing communities of color and tearing families apart. If you recall, during the 2024 presidential campaign, Trump made no secret of the fact that he wanted to deport millions of, quote, criminal illegal aliens. But the reality and the brutality of how the Trump administration is carrying out its mass deportation operation is driving people away from him. And the face of that merciless crackdown is the Homeland Security Secretary, Kristi Noem. She's been on the receiving end of a lot of intense scrutiny, including for ICE's inhumane and potentially illegal treatment of immigrants. Those concerns began not long after she was confirmed by the Senate, and it became a huge flashpoint in the spring after the wrongful deportation of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, whose Kafkaesque case has become a saga in itself. Abrego Garcia is a Salvadoran national who entered the United States without authorization when he was a teenager. In 2019, a judge ruled that he could not be deported back to El Salvador, where he faced danger from a gang. But that's exactly what the Trump administration did back in March. They sent him to a notorious prison in El Salvador. A federal judge ordered his return to the United States, but the government has continued to hound him ever since, re-detaining him multiple times. On Thursday, a federal judge ordered him to be released again, finding that the government detained him without any legal basis. But fearing that authorities would immediately re-detain Garcia, she issued a second order blocking the government from doing so. Also on Thursday, Kristi Noem appeared on Capitol Hill for the House's annual review of worldwide threats. But Democrats used her appearance in front of Congress as an opportunity to ask her about DHS's overreach, including the fact that U.S. citizens and military veterans have been ensnared in ICE's operations.
Madam Secretary, how many United States military veterans have you deported?
Sir, we have not deported U.S. citizens or military veterans.
Madam Secretary, we are joined on Zoom by a gentleman named Se-Jun Park. He is a United States Army combat veteran who was shot twice while serving our country in Panama in 1989. Earlier this year, you deported him to Korea, a country he hasn't lived in since he was 7 years old. Will you join me in thanking Mr. Park for his service to our country?
Sir, I'm grateful for every single person that has served our country and follows our laws.
Can you please tell Mr. Park why you deported him?
Every one of them needs to be enforced.
Noem is now facing multiple calls for her resignation. The Democratic Congresswoman Delia Ramirez took it one step further by sending a letter to the House Judiciary Committee asking them to open an impeachment inquiry into Noem. MS Now also reported this week that the White House has grown frustrated with Noem and that she could be replaced as soon as January. Her possible successors include the Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin, whose term ends in a few weeks, the acting ICE Director Todd Lyons, and according to Politico, the former Republican Congressman Jason Chaffetz is also in the mix. The White House continues to deny that Noem's job is in danger, but she's facing opposition on multiple fronts, including from Republican lawmakers who have concerns about her handling of the $170 billion infusion of cash that they appropriated for DHS this year, especially after a ProPublica report found that a company involved in a $220 million no-bid advertising contract that was fast-tracked by the DHS this year has close ties to Noem and some of her aides. Some Trump administration officials have also grown skeptical of her leadership. The Wall Street Journal and Axios both report recently on the growing tensions between Noem and the border czar Tom Homan. The two of them have opposing views about how to achieve Trump's ambitious mass deportation goals. Homan is a longtime immigration official who wants to rely on traditional methods to target deportable immigrants. Then there's Noem, who favors a flashier, attention-grabbing approach that plays to Trump's sensibilities, like when she visited the notorious prison in El Salvador, where Abrego Garcia was sent, and used prisoners as background decoration for a fear-mongering propaganda video.
I also want everybody to know, if you come to our country illegally, this is one of the consequences you could face. First of all, do not come to our country illegally. You will be removed and you will be prosecuted. But know that this facility is one of the tools in our toolkit that we will use if you commit crimes against the American people.
Noem has deliberately engineered herself as the face of Donald Trump's brutal immigration crackdown. There's speculation that it's an early effort to boost her own profile ahead of the 2028 presidential elections. She's been unapologetic, even callous, about her department's controversial tactics. And she appears to enjoy playing dress-up and donning the uniforms of ICE, Border Patrol, and other DHS agencies to ingratiate herself to Donald Trump and to spread his agenda.
President Trump has a clear message for those that are in our country illegally. Leave now. Under President Trump, America's laws, border, and families will be protected. Thank you, President Donald J. Trump, for securing our border, for deporting criminal illegal immigrants, and for putting America first.
I'm joined now by Radley Balco, longtime journalist covering civil liberties and the criminal justice system. He's the author of Rise of the Warrior Cop and author of The Watch on Substack. I'm also with the immigration attorney Allen Orr, founder of the Orr Immigration Law Firm. Welcome, guys. Good to see you. Radley, let me just start with you, because you wrote about the Warrior Cop. I didn't know if you knew about the Warrior DHS secretary. I mean, it comes Muammar Gaddafi, Idi Amin, all these people who wore those, outfits with medals. She plays this role, this tough enforcer role, not the role of a cabinet secretary.
Yeah, I mean, it's clearly propaganda. I think it's completely inappropriate, and it sets a tone for the rest of the department. The New York Times podcast, The Daily, last week had an episode where they interviewed dozens of people who this administration sent to CCOT, the torture prison in El Salvador, many of whom were innocent, who were sent because the administration claimed that their tattoos, linked them to Tren de Aragua and other gangs. And it was really harrowing. I mean, they talked about physical abuse. They talked about sexual abuse, being sexually assaulted by guards there. They talked about torture. At one point, they cut themselves and wrote messages on bed sheets in their own blood, pleading for help. And you have this DHS secretary going there and posing for a photo op while wearing as I understand it, a tens of thousands of dollar Rolex. I think that video ought to haunt her for the rest of her political career.
Allen, this talk about CCOT and this torture prison, as Radley calls it, in El Salvador, the district judge, Paula Zinas, who's been handling this case, handed down 2 orders related to Kilmar Abrego Garcia's case. The first one ordered his immediate release from detention, and the second one blocked immigration authorities from re-detaining him. In the second order, she wrote, quote, Abrego Garcia will suffer irreparable harm absent emergency relief. If, as Abrego Garcia suspects, respondents will take him into custody this morning, then his liberty will be restricted once again. It is beyond dispute that unlawful detention visits irreparable harm, end quote. Talk to me about this. I mean, I don't typically think a judge has to spell it out that way. They put down an order in their legal justification, and that should be it. She's having to spell out to the Trump administration, you can't keep breaking the law to do this.
Right. So procedurally, this is part of the reality TV show that they're trying to present to themselves. They had all this evidence that this person was part of a gang. They haven't presented that. Then they go back and they say that there's a removal order and there's no removal order. So then once the judge orders him released, what do? They go to an immigration judge and get a removal order to then try to detain him again. So this is the nonsensibility and waste of cost trying to detain an individual who should not be detained.
Radley, let's talk about the discussion about whether Kristi Noem is going to be replaced. I'm not sure what the case is, because if you're the Trump administration, she's carrying your water. She's actually doing what Donald Trump likes.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of knowing what pushes his buttons, she's right on the money. He likes visuals. He likes propaganda. He likes to be, sort of exalted and praised. And she does that very well in these cabinet meetings. The fact that there are Republicans who are upset with her, I don't think that's going to be an issue for Trump. He defies the party pretty regularly. The fact that there are these allegations of corruption or suggestions of corruption, which she's had kind of following her whole career, That certainly isn't going to be a problem with Trump. If anything, it probably wins you favor in his book. I mean, the open kind of brazen corruption we're seeing this administration. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't have sources on the inside of DHS that could tell me what's actually going on there, but I don't really see why Trump would be displeased with her at all.
Allen, let's talk about the propaganda. Because if you say it enough, some people will believe it, right? If you say that you are just arresting and detaining and deporting or whatever it is, illegal aliens who are criminals and rapists and murderers, people will take that to be true. I don't know what the statistics are nationally. I've heard it's upward of 90-some% have no criminal exposure whatsoever. Brad Lander was here earlier, said in New York it's upward of 75%. No interaction with the law at all. No negative adverse interaction with the law at all of people who are arrested and detained.
So first, let's start with something that was just addressed. I do think that the Trump administration always looks for a fall person, and she will make a good fall person with regards to these constitutional violations. So let's start there. There've been over 170 United States citizens arrested, over 1,000 United States citizens and green card holders arrested. If the same kind of care was given, they would stop their operations and sort of clean them up to make sure they were not improperly removing individuals. The propaganda is the point to deter immigrants from coming here as they beat the system down with regards to everything. The Department of Justice, which now just basically the Department of Just ICE and Immigration, because they have changed judges to deportation judges. So it's about the messaging. So I do think there's a way for her to fall because they are violating the Constitution. When you became a United States citizen, they gave you a flag. You didn't require to have one, but they also gave you the Constitution, which delineates between the rights of a citizen and a person in the United States. And it is very clear in the Constitution that the Fourth and the Fifth Amendment apply to all persons, which include undocumented people in the United States. And she has consistently violated that. And that's going to be the end, not only maybe some repercussions legally for her personally, and I hope states step up and put some rules on the books that might have some legal consequences that cannot be written away.
Yeah, and Radley, this is interesting because you posted this morning about the U.S. Border Patrol Commander Greg Bovino. It's not a name everybody will know just yet, but he's been leading the administration's efforts in Chicago. You wrote, quote, Bovino, the man overseeing mass deportations, publicly declared that we must all have our papers on us at all times, or we could be stopped, harassed, kidnapped, and detained, as they did with this man the man in this case, who is a U.S. citizen. We're hearing a lot about this. And ultimately, DHS says they don't detain U.S. citizens. If they do, the minute they find out you're a citizen, they let you go. But that's wild. Like, you got to walk around with proof of your citizenship?
Yeah, I mean, that post was in response to Bovino himself on X responding to this story by saying a real ID is not proof of citizenship and that you have to have proof of your citizenship at all times. This was not a legal resident. This was a U.S. citizen who, by these immigration officials' reckoning, I guess, sort of looked foreign, right? And so, yeah, I mean, people like me probably aren't going to be asked for their papers on a regular basis, but, if you're Latino, if you're Somali in Minneapolis, yeah, you might, either of you might. I think it's, that is not the kind of country we're supposed to be living in. I mean, we are not a papers please country. We've always sort of prided ourselves on that, but that's what Bovino seems to think.
Real quick, Allen, are we a no papers, please country? Like, this is not legal, right? You don't have to show up your
two things. One, you're not required to carry documents if you're a United States citizen. And number two, ICE has no authority over United States citizens. They can only briefly stop you to deter. And if you make an assertion that you're a United States citizen, they're supposed to back off. And that's within the regulations. The problem is enforcement of those regulations is going to take some time. But it's very clear ICE has no authority over United States citizens.
Guys, thanks very much. Radley Balco is the author of The Watch on Substack and the book Rise of the Warrior Cop. Allen Orr is an immigration attorney.